The Elements of Harmony and Savior of Worlds by RK Striker JK5. Chapter 29. At the Rainbow Bridge, Megan and Spike shielded her eyes as a spear of light formed, quickly dissolving, and left behind Twilight Sparkle, Mike, Danny, Molly, and a young woman in a business suit. Said woman slowly stood up and rubbed her forehead. Okay, it's not as bad as I thought, but still disconcerting. She went to Megan and extended her hand. Mrs. Richards, my name is Minerva Yamato. I am from the State Department. Megan blinked and slowly extended her hand to Minerva. Oh, hello. She glanced over at Mike, who was kneeling by Twilight with Spike. Mac? Mike glanced up and scratched the back of his head. Ugh. It's alright, Mulligan. We're not trouble or anything. They just want to work with us, and no one's broken any laws. He looked over to Twilight as he stood there, wobbling slightly. Spike? Is this normal for her? Spike hopped around Twilight, waving his arms in the air. Twilight! Twilight! Clasped his talons together, rocked back and forth. I think we better write Princess Celestia and ask her to skip that meeting she's got with Fancy Pants. I'm worried! Everyone gathered around Twilight, who continued to wobble on her hooves. She closed her eyes and kicked the ground. I can't do this anymore, she finally said, shoulders slumping. I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know what it is, but teleporting across the Rainbow Bridge just drains me so badly. Even with one or two passengers, I feel like I'm on rubber legs and my head spins. She hung her head and sniffled. I'm so sorry, everyone. Spike wrapped his arms around her neck in a hug. Don't beat yourself up about this, Twilight. You did your best here, like you always do. Twilight leaned forward, partly to the hug, and partly due to sheer exhaustion. Thank you, Spike. But I feel really bad about not being able to do this. She went to the hole. I still don't know why this tires me out so much. It's so frustrating! Day rolled over to Twilight's side and gently ruffled her mane. Hey, like Spike said, no worries. Twilight, we'll just use Celestia Luna Arcades as our taxi service. Twilight whinnied and cantered back, breaking Spike's hug. What? The princesses? Danny, you can't be serious, she half shouted, staring at him with wide eyes. They were the princesses! Danny shrugged and leaned back in his wheelchair. Well, yeah. I changed Celestia and Luna's diapers for 3 years. They owe me for that. Megan looked at Minerva. Mac? Miss Yamato? She waited for the younger woman to look up before motioning to the side. The three stepped aside. Okay. What's up? Megan asked. She raised her arms to her chest across them, but stopped and dropped them to her sides. Minerva chuckled. She laced her fingers together in front of her stomach and rocked slightly on her heels. Well, the resident of the Half-Nathy wishes me to extend to you his apologies for not getting back to you before now. The information Mr. Chase gave us was quite a lot to digest. He also wishes me to invite Princess Celestia and Luna to Earth for talks and hopefully the opening of diplomatic channels and even trade. She looked around. I'm guessing that might have to wait for a bit. Megan nodded. Sorry about that. Luna's taking a nap and Celestia had a number of meetings to attend before dinner tonight. They'll be along later, but beyond Spike and trailing there ourselves, we don't have any real way to contact them, at least for the moment. Mike sighed. Sorry, Megan. I would have called, but getting a signal through is iffy at best and most of the time. He looked around. Danielle and Michelle off in Ponyville? Megan waved him off. Lara at Sleepy Apple Acres with the rest of the Crusaders. And don't worry about not calling Mac. So, Miss Yamato, please, Minerva is fine. A genuine smile lit up Megan's face. Then just Megan for me. Anyway, until Celestia and Luna arrive, we can take you on a tour of Ponyville or get you something to eat. Minerva pulled a piece of paper from her jacket pocket and handed it to Megan. I am also here to give you an offer to buy your property. We'd like to use the land to build an official embassy for Equestria, as well as a space-based station for ease of transport across the Rainbow Bridge. She turned and glanced at Twilight, who was still sitting on the ground. I think it would be better for all involved. Mike sidled over to Megan as she opened the piece of paper. Their eyes nearly popped out of their heads and jaws went slack. They looked to each other, then to Minerva. Megan slowly folded the paper back up and, with an exaggerated care, handed it back. Why is The dinner is over, she said, clearing her throat again. I am. She and Mike stepped back, turned to each other, and clasped their hands together. Suddenly began jumping around in a circle, letting out whoops of delight. Danny, Molly, Spike, and even Twilight stared at the pair as they continued dancing about and whooping. Molly walked up to Minerva's side. Okay, how much did you offer them? Or was there some sort of drug on the paper that reacts to your touch or smell or something? Minerva's mouth formed a straight line. This is a secret, she said, the corners of her mouth tucking up. Thorn! Everyone looked to the Everfree forest as the ground shook. Megan and Mike stopped hopping around and separated as Megan pulled her rifle from where it hung on her back. Okay, what the hell was that? She asked, sliding to safety onto the off position. Minerva slid a thin laser pistol out of her shoulder holster and thundered on it as the ground continued to shake. I do believe that the Everfree forest of yours has some large predators. Manticores, timberwolves, a knockout dragon, and even the bear of the size of a house for starters. Danny leaned down and scooped Twilight into his arms. He placed her on his lap and spun around. All right, I think we should make for Ponyville and leave whatever's coming alone. The outer edge of the Everfree suddenly exploded. Trees were ripped from their foundation, tumbling like tent pins and sending everyone rushing about to avoid being squashed. The branches snapped from trunks, and leaves flew out as a translucent blue bear emerged. Yellow eyes wide with rage. Its left rear leg limped over slightly, a pale green burn mark marring its otherwise shimmering fur. One large tree toppled over and landed right between Mike and Megan, separating them. Both dove away from it, Megan rolling for a bit before coming up to one knee. She raised her head, seeing the Ursa Minor coming toward her. "Oh, say it!" she shouted as the beast stopped a few meters away, eyeing her. She raised her rifle and yelled out, "Twilight! Cover everyone's ears! It's going to get really loud in a second!" Spike climbed over a tree trunk, sliding down it and landing next to Danny and Twilight. "Twilight, you gotta do something!" he pleaded, grabbing one of the wheelchair's wheels. "Just like out before, remember?" Twilight let out a breath. She screwed her eyes shut, and her heart began glowing. But it quickly faded and her head dropped down. I can't do anything, she panted out. At least not while it's moving about and active. She sucked in a deep breath before yelling, "Megan! Can you sing to it? Now calm it down and I can try to float it off!" Megan looked at Ursa over before shaking her head. "It's got rocks inside its ears!" she yelled back. She raised her rifle, squared her shoulders, and braced her feet. Twilight's eyes bugged out. "Rocks? What the hey is... Twilight! Ears! Now!" Twilight's ears folded flat against her head. Her horn loaded up once more, fainter this time. The same glow enveloped her ears, as well as Megan's, Danny's, Spike's. "All set!" she shouted. Megan held her breath as she squeezed the trigger, firing at the Ursa. The giant bear flinched slightly, pawing its face in a comparatively small wound on its muzzle. Bluish liquid leaked from it, dripping onto the ground. It let out another roar. It took another step forward, shaking the ground. Megan worked her rifle's lever, ejecting the spent cartridge. She rolled her shoulder, wincing slightly. Forgot how much of a kike she's got, she mumbled to herself. She shuffled back, keeping her eye on the bear. She raised the rifle once more, firing rapidly as she could work the lever, prepping its face and legs. Most of now, the corner of her eye caught her attention. She looked up and to her left. Mike stood up on the fallen tree trunk, pistol out and trained on the bear's flank. Even standing on the tree, the Ursa was still a few feet taller. "Get away from her!" he shouted, squeezing the trigger and entering the pistol's clip into the Ursa's flank. The Ursa roared and keened, lashing the trunk with his paw. Mike let out a yelp as he flew back, disappearing behind the trunk once more. Megan's breath caught her chest. "Mac!" she screamed. The bear let out, barely tapping her with his other paw and sending her flying back. Megan landed hard on the ground, her rifle laying back several more feet. She groaned, pain shooting through her back. "Damn!" She blinked a few times, finally able to focus for a moment. She gasped as the Ursa loomed over her, the muzzle the size of her torso, a mere inches from her. Bear reached down with a paw and scooped up the still dazed Megan, clutching her gently in its paw. He turned and ambled back into the Everfree. Mike stumbled out from the log, limping slightly. He had a shallow cut across his forehead and clutched at his back, but had his pistol out. Molly and Minerva soon joined them, with Danny, Spike, and Twilight emerging a few seconds later. Spike intended to sped magazine while Minerva raced her own laser pistol. But before any action could be taken, a pair of black-clad piglets emerged from the shadows, eyes glowing a pale yellow. They scooped up Megan with the Ursa's paw and flew off, disappearing into the depths of the Everfree. Mike's jaw worked for a minute, and he waved at the forest. His breath came out right against. I just, he wiped his eyes. Those things just kidnapped Megan! He looked down at Twilight, sitting in Danny's lap. Twilight, what was that thing? Why did those pigs not help it? He stumbled back, grasping for hair. Oh, God. Danielle, Michelle, they don't know what happened. Molly grabbed his trembling hands. Mac, slow down. Calm down. She breathed through her nose and wagged her hand in the upwards motion. Breathe in, breathe out. It's all right. We'll get Megan back. Trust me, this is nothing compared to Gronar. Mike sucked in a few gulps of air. His hands steady, straightened up. Okay, sorry about that. That kind of hit everything home for me. Danny rolled up to Mike's side, pounding him back. No problem, man. No problem at all. Twilight looked up. Mike, to answer your question, that was an Ursa Minor. They're usually found north of the Dragonlands, but this one and its mother live here in the Everfree Forest. This isn't typical behavior for it. It usually just sleeps in its cave unless disturbed. Minerva spoke up. What about those two Pegasi that grabbed Megan? Do they control the Ursa? What use would they have for her? Why did it lumber out to grab her? Twilight shook her head. I don't know, Minerva! There's relatively little information concerning Ursa Minors, except that Nightmare Moon used them in the Nightmare War, and the best way is for a dragon to kill it! And the only other time I encountered this one, Simpson Sales had lured it out for a traveling magician named Trixie Lulumoon to fight. All I could do was lull it to sleep and float it back to its cave. Spike hopped up and down. Nightmare Moon used them? Twilight nodded. Right, Spike. But I don't see how... Oh! Her ears shut up. She looked at Danny. Danny, got anything to write with? Danny reached behind and pulled out a notebook and ballpoint pen. He raised around Twilight and handed them to Spike, who took them and wrote rapidly on a sheet of paper. He tore out the sheet, held it up, and breathed out a gout of green flame into it. The flame burned the scroll to ash, and a wind kicked up, sending the ash high into the air. Minerva watched it fly off. So, that sends it to Celestia? Twilight nodded as she watched it fly off. She slowly hopped off Danny's lap, landing onto the ground. She stumbled slightly upon contact, but quickly regained her footing as Spike placed a steadying claw on her shoulder. Thanks, she said to one of her oldest friends. She looked at Minerva. I'm afraid all we can do now is wait for the princesses to respond, and her knows how... Celestia and Luna suddenly appeared, their eyes ablaze. Celestia's hooves burnt the grass beneath them, while Luna's shadow seemed to drake in the surrounding light. Long that will be. Twilight blinked, and ears folded right against her head. Oh dear. Alcorn's eyes dimmed back to normal. Celestia turned to Everfree, snorting. She pawed the ground, digging up a rather deep trench. So, the Ursa Minor emerged, kidnapped Megan, and brought her inside, and a pair of Pegasi carried her away? Her horn lit up. Am I correct in this? Minerva spoke up. That about sums it up, your majesty. She held up her badge as Celestia and Luna turned to her. Minerva Yamato, State Department, and I think we've got far bigger fish to fry than formal introductions at the moment. Luna nodded. A very wise decision, Miss Yamato. She turned, but stopped as she saw Mike. She trotted over to him, her horn glowing. You're injured, she said, touching her horn to his forehead. Mike straightened up as the cut on his forehead healed, and the pains and aches faded to nothingness. Thanks. But Megan? He stepped away from her and looked at the forest. I mean, every second we wait, she's farther away! He started forward, but a blue glow enveloped him and floated back to Luna. I know, and I wish to level the entire cousin Everfree until we find her, she said, clearing out the path of destruction that led into death. But there are things amiss. I controlled the bears when I was Nightmare Moon, and I can tell you that this is not typical behavior for one. Unless it is directed or disturbed, they will not leave the territory. Danny rolled over to Celestia. Did Spacorn say something about them getting riled up north of the Dragonlands? He waited a moment for a response. Celestia? He snapped his fingers. Hi! Celestia blinked and shook her head, her mane floating about. Sorry, I just... She screwed her eyes shut. Dane reached up and patted her loin right in front of her wings. I know, he said. Voice suddenly became hoarse. Mike clicked his hands together. Okay, so the Star Bears are solely on the rampage, kidnapped Megan. The question is, why did it do this? What controlled it to get to her? Because I'm pretty damn sure she didn't mention running into that thing the 2 times she's gone to the Everfree. He moused over, punched the log, and let out a yelp of equal parts frustration and pain. A voice suddenly echoed throughout their minds in the air, catching their attention.
Who indeed, Michael Richards? Who indeed controlled the Ursa Minor? Why, only the Lord of Darkness himself.
Luna gasped and reared back, kicking the air. No, it cannot be! Her eyes started forward. That was the voice. The voice that tempted me tonight by the moon! Celestia turned and catered to her sister's side. Luna, are you sure? I thought the flashback had you using your voice.
It was simple to manipulate her if I sounded more like her and made her think that it was a part of her that was corrupting her.
Luna looked at Celestia and nodded. Even after 1,000 years, I remember it. A high wind suddenly kicked up, tossing debris about. The humans and dragon held up their arms over their heads, while Celestia's and Luna's horns lit up. Protective domes enveloped everyone there. Thanks, Molly said. She looked up as the clouds suddenly formed over the Everfree, stretching into the horizon. She lowered her arms and placed her hands on her hips. Okay, I don't know who the hell you are, but you're going to have to do a little better than that to intimidate us.
Very well, Molly Williams. I shall take you up on your challenge.
Dane slapped his forehead. Way to go, Sias! An image of T-Rex shimmered as she existed in the hole in the Everfree the Ursa made, nearly 10 feet tall. He spread his arms out.
Ah, how nice it is to see you all here.
Luna's breath hits in her thumb. You're T-Rex! You're the one who killed Queen Majesty and destroyed the old kingdom of Ponyland! She dug her hose to the ground and lowered her head. Megan and the others of Dream Valley killed you before you could enact your plan of eternal night! Her eyes suddenly widened. No. T-Rex laughed.
Now you see. That's surprising considering how easy it was to lead you down the path to be my servant.
Luna nickered. Her horn glowed as she fired off a bolt of magic at the image. I know your true face now, demon! She spat. I shall not fall for your honey-coated lies any longer! Celestia held up a hoof. Easy, Luna. This is what he wants you to do. She tried up to the image of T-Rex. We will not play to your tune, demon! Return Megan to us now! The old rainbow of light killed you, and now we have the elements of harmony. T-Rex belted a laugh.
Oh, do you think I'm stupid, Celestia? Do you really think I didn't have some sort of plan or safeguards against you, Luna, or other ponies?
His lips curled up to a sneer. He jabbed a finger at Luna.
While Luna and I were indisposed in the moon, I took the opportunity to tap into her link into the heart of Ponyland.
He sketched a bow to the outer corner of the night.
Thank you ever so much, Luna. Because of that, I have more than enough power to hold you off.
The center of the Everfree suddenly erupted. Trees tumbling to the ground. Mike let out a gasp. What the hell is that?
That would be the force field I designated over Dream Castle.
T-Rex responded.
My shadow boats have just delivered Megan's Semlight Council's form to me. I will need privacy for the ritual.
Mike's eyes widened. Ritual. Demon spread his arms out.
What I basically barely counts as smooth. I need flesh in order to regain my full, true powers. Megan Williams cost me my own body, and now she shall be back to debt. And when I am whole once more, I shall stretch my heart out and bring true eternal night to this world. I shall bring down your pathetic Equestria, the dragon clans, the Griffin Empire. All shall bow down before me.
Mike clenched his hands hard enough for small rivers of blood to seep through the cracks. You son of a bitch! Celestia's mane, meanwhile, suddenly ignited. She snorted, steam flaring from her nostrils. See her eyes turning a blaze of white as she stretched out her wings. Never! She shouted, spittle flying from her muzzle. There's Sarah's sister. Celestia. T-Rex chuckled.
Oh, dear Celestia, you forget. If I could draw the Ursa Minor.
The Everfree suddenly exploded. Beyond the immense Immersa Mater emerging and stretching out to the sky.
What about the Ursa Major?
Mike, Molly, Danny, Minerva, Twilight, and Spice Jaws all fell as the Titanic Star Bear roared, shaking the ground. Minerva held up her laser pistol and looked it over. I think we're going to need some help against that thing! Celestia reared back, kicking the air and sending out mired sideways with each thrust of her foreleg. Her hind legs tense as she was suddenly airborne, flying right up to the Ursa Major. She became an indistinct dot against the bear's bulk. The sun suddenly burst through the clouds, dispelling them as they were weeds of fluff. The sky brightened into an almost blinding white, even as the Ursa Major shielded its eyes against the glare. The solid beam of light shot from the sun and fell beneath Celestia, igniting her mane and tail. Her horn was a pillar of fire. She reared back. She tossed her head forward and firing a beam from the tip of her horn at the Ursa. It struck its ethereal flesh, strobing over the violet mass. The Ursa stumbled back, crushing entire corpses of trees as it endured the assault. It roared and thrashed under the assault, smoke beginning to rise. The blue mark on its forehead glowed, and the blue energy beam starts from it, hitting Celestia's own beam and forcing it back. The two scenes of embarrassing whistled and fought with each other for a few minutes, moving back and forth as if solid objects. Celestia's wings ignited, and she nickered, kicking the air. The energy around her horn pulsed. The beam intensified, forcing back the Ursa's own energy. It quickly overwhelmed the Ursa and fell beneath its head and vaporizing it. The headless body trod back on for a moment on its hind legs, swaying back and forth before fading away. The energy contained within freed and dissipated into the air. Celestia fell. Luna and Twilight both gasped and caught her with their telekinesis, slowing her descent. The Alcorn landed, her legs buckling under her weight. Luna and Twilight both steadied Celestia, the former walking over to her side. She waited for Celestia to be able to support her own weight before speaking. I fear that is exactly what T-Rex wanted you to do. She leaned in and nuzzled Celestia. I thought I was supposed to be the impulsive one. She chided. Celestia sighed and folded her wings back against her body. It's still one less minion T-Rex has. She looked to his image, still standing there. If that was your trump card, your hand's weaker than you think. She panted out. T-Rex merely raised his right hand and clenched to a fist. 6 balls of light appeared above the Everfree, falling and crashing into this forest and shaking the ground. More trees shook and toppled over as 6 more Ursa Majors emerged, roaring. Dark clouds rose up from the very shadows themselves, stretching out to Shadowbolt Pegasi. All around the edge of the Everfree, Earth Pony and Unicorn Shadowbolt stared out with yellow, unblinking eyes. T-Rex smiled.
Celestia, Luna, I shall see you soon. Prepare for annihilation.
And with that, the image faded away. Celestia and Luna exchanged a glance before turning to the others. We must act quickly, Celestia said. Luna, please go to Canterlot. Get the elements and inform Chancellor Fancy Pants, General Spanish Shield, and Captain Shiny Armor of the quite literal Code T-Rex on our hooves. Tell them to take away any measures necessary to ensure the containment of T-Rex forces and the safety of the populace. And you? Luna asked. Several scrolls, inkwells, and quills flashed into existence around Celestia. The scrolls unfurled, and the quills tipped into the inkwells, and Celestia began writing on them. I received a message from Spicorin this morning that he and Jorman Red were back at the Valley of the Chieftains. I am formally requesting his aid. Also, I am riding Queen Rosedust as well as the Princess Ponies requesting aid. I'll coordinate things here and regain my strength before we rescue Megan. Celestia finished writing, and the scrolls re-rolled themselves, vanishing once more. Luna let a small file from her face. So, the final prophecy was true, she remarked. A mist formed up around her body, enveloping it. A wind kicked up, sending the mist flying off into Canterlot's direction, taking Luna with it. Celestia looked to the others. Twilight? Spike? Twilight hopped off Danny's lip, groaning slightly. She worked her neck a bit. Ugh, I'm better, she said. What is it, Princess? Celestia's horn glowed, and a pair of rolled-up scrolls appeared before the unicorn and dragon. Each buried the royal seal. These give you executive authority. Gather the other elements, get the citizens somewhere safe, do whatever you have to in order to rescue Ponyfield, and then get back here as quickly as possible. Spike straightened up. He grabbed one scroll and tossed her a salute. You can count on us, Princess, he said, his expression one of determination. Twilight nodded. Spike speaks for both of us, she said, flinging her own scroll over. She looked at Spike. Hello, close, Spike. We're going for a ride. Mike spoke up. Twilight? Daniel? Michelle? Twilight looked at him. I'll make sure they're safe, Mike. Or at least somebody checks on them. We're horrified to life. Spike, ready? Mike nodded down close to his oldest friend. Thanks for warning me this time, Twilight, he said before both vanished in a flash of violet light. Danny rolled up to Celestia and looked up at her. We need to go back home. Molly's right by ours. Excuse me? She marched to his side, leaned over and jabbed a finger at him. Megan just got kidnapped and we're going back home! Danny's mouth twitched. He reached up and batted Molly's hand away. You and I are unarmed, and I know Mike's out ammunition. Mike nodded, and I didn't bring any spare magazines with me. Danny glanced at him, returned the nod before focusing on Molly once more. So, right now, we're kind of useless, but there's weapons and ammo back at the house. Just give me a few minutes to get them, alright? Celestia lowered her head. Thank you. 3 silver discs appear in front of Molly, Danny, and Mike. Squeeze them, and they will teleport you to the house. Squeeze again, and you'll come back. Get what you need, then return. Minerva spoke up. Excuse me, Your Highness. I need to go back for a few minutes, too. She held out her smartphone. I seriously doubt there's any real way to get military aid and get time to stop T-Rex or his armies. But I do need to call Washington and inform them of Z's situation. I will return, though. A 4th disc appeared in front of her. Go with my thanks, Celestia said. Mike looked to the infantry. When I get back, I'm tearing that damned force apart until I find her. Celestia opened her mouth, hesitating for a moment before speaking. Mike, I don't think that's a good idea. Oh no, Mike blurted out. There's no chance I'm being left behind when you and Luna are storming that castle. I'll have to do something to help. He dropped his arms to his side and hung his head. I just can't do nothing for her. I love her and... His voice trailed off and wiped his eyes. Sorry. Just sorry. Celestia walked up to Mike and leaned her head down, touching her horn to his shoulder. You didn't let me finish, she said, her horn glowing. I was going to say that wouldn't be a good idea as you are now. A white blob emerged from Celestia's horn onto Mike's body, floating around him. It faded, leaving a chainmail shirt covered with gleaming silver plate armor. Greaves covered his legs, while Gauntlet protected his hands and forearms. A broadsword hung from his back and helmet and covered his head. On his breastplate was an ornate window, with the sun and moon hanging over it. Mike reached up and looked at the visor covering his face. He looked down to the armor, sketching a bow to Celestia. Thanks. Molly, Danny, sincere goods. Looks pretty good on you. Celestia looked to her right, and Megan's rifle floated over to him. Hurry back. Mike grabbed the rifle. We will, he said. He held up the teleport disc and squeezed it, vanishing in a silver flash. We'll be back, Danny said, squeezing the disc and falling. Molly, sailing over Celestia, gave her a hug. Be careful, she said. She stepped back and squeezed her disc, vanishing. Celestia looked to Minerva, still there. I do apologize for the unexpected events. Minerva held up her right hand, waving off. Accepted, Your Highness, but not needed. Considering the assignment, I was prepared for a bit of insanity. She waved her hand back and forth. Maybe not to this extent, but a little. She held up her disc, squeezed it, and vanished. Celestia looked around, soaking in the relative silence. She looked up to the equestrian side of the Rainbow Bridge, letting the magic of the heart playing land flow back into her. Movement below caught her eye. She looked down and saw a shadow bolt walking out of the Everfree, snarling and baring fangs at her. The unicorn's eyes narrowed, and her horn fired a bolt at it, incinerating it to ash. She closed her eyes and sighed. Safe, safe, Megan. You saved your little ponies so many times. Now, it's time to return the favor. So, T-Rex, I think it's quite possible you may have ticked off every pony that you could possibly tick off. I mean, let's count. You kicked off the basically the bearers of some of the most pure virtues out there. Two literal gods. A very, very giant dragon with some enormous anger issues. And a few a few random flutter ponies. I say it's quite possible you may have just got turned into probably one of the most hated beings in all of Equestria.
You think that scares me? I have an army.
We have an Optimus at the ready. Oh, and I forgot one more you ticked off. His name was Mike.